I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, February the 18th, brought to you in part by Norbrook. Norbrook's generic pharmaceutical products are made to the same high FDA standards for safety, efficacy, and manufacturing as the name brand or Pioneer products. For more information, visit norbrook.com. I want to spend just a little bit here remembering Rush Limbaugh. He passed away there on Wednesday, and I tell you what, he made a big impact in my life. And I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I was in a high school student when he first came out, and KGNC Talk Radio 71 out of Amarillo. They had kind of a far-reaching arm, and they were right in the very first to take him whenever he went nationwide, and that would have been in the later 80s there. And me and my dad, we enjoyed Rush Limbaugh to the fullest, and we used to schedule our work around him, and everything that we did, we listened to Rush every single day. And back in those days, and for those of you that don't know, he was a conservative radio talk show host. He was for over 30 years. But when he first went nationwide syndication back in the late 80s, I mean, he was good. And it was entertaining. He was conservative. He talked about the things that we all agreed upon. He wasn't an ag guy like Derry Brownfield or somebody like that, but he just talked about everything. But he always respected agriculture, and he wasn't a big city guy either. He come from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I'd always known that. And when I lived in Missouri, I found out more about it. He was on the Wall of Fame there on the Mississippi River in Missouri, right along with Mark Twain and Harry Truman and the guys. I mean, he was a big deal. But you couldn't grow up in Cape Girardeau, Missouri and not appreciate agriculture if it wasn't grain floating down the river. I mean, it was cattle turned out or something. But tell you what, Rush was so much fun to listen to. We listened to him every day. People thought he was arrogant and brash and all that thing, but he was just fun. And, we were listening when he first started the deal. He got so sick of people commending him on everything and telling him how great he was, he would just hang up on them if they started out doing that. And so finally somebody called in, and somebody had just recently talked about how great he was, the previous caller, and he just said ditto. And so he started out the ditto deal, and he had bumper stickers that were ditto, and if you said ditto, that meant that you thought Rush was great. And I tell you what, we were ditto heads. We were running a lot of wheat cattle around Clovis, New Mexico at that time. I never was a real cowboy, but back when I was young like that, I thought I was. But we were Wheaties, we were wheat pasturing with single axle goosenecks and horses, and we were out there watching them. But we'd take care of the cattle in the pens in the morning first thing, so that we'd be able to go out and start windshielding them or looking at those wheat cattle about the time that Rush come on. And, I just remember it like yesterday, riding around, hoping like hell didn't see one off by himself or something, that I was going to have to get out and either try to rope and doctor or drive up to some portable pens and doctor. But we'd always worked around Rush, and they had long commercial breaks, and we'd sit there and wait for a commercial break, and then we'd get out and doctor one or something, then get back in and drive to the next place. But he was just a lot of fun, and if you guys didn't know him back in the early days, I mean, he got away with stuff that most people wouldn't get away with. I mean, he was brash. He had parody songs. He had these updates. He used to get after Al Gore so much on his global warming stuff, like we're going through right now. He called him Al Gore, and he was hell on President Clinton. He called him Slick Willie. He had all these update parody songs that he played all the time. He was calling out some people that were openly gay politicians. He would play Puff the Magic Dragon, and you just couldn't help but giggle at him. But my favorite parody song that he had, and some of you guys probably remember it, I'll give you a blast from the past, was his homeless update, because homeless people started being a big deal. If you guys remember this.
Ain't got no home, or no place
I tell you what, that song would make your day if you were out working in the cold. But we used to love the homeless update and the homeless song, but maybe you had to be kind of hard like us to really appreciate it, but we loved it. Let's talk about what else is going on around. I saw a sad video that a friend of mine sent me from the Fort Worth stockyards on Wednesday night late. And you know, they've had all the cold weather and didn't know how to handle it down there in North Texas and South Texas, Central Texas, West Texas, everywhere. But then the rolling blackouts because we've got a power problem. But we saw a video there. Evidently the pipes froze at the old Fort Worth Stockyards Exchange building, and then they busted upstairs and the whole place was flooding. And if that doesn't make you sick, I bet Superior's glad that they moved out recently and went to their new studios out around Weatherford there. But I tell you what, I was lucky they didn't have all that equipment in there when it did it. But I mean, it was flooding out and doing a lot of bad damage to that historic building there, and it just made me sick to watch. But I tell you what, we're about to get through this worst of the cold weather. We still got rolling blackouts. I'm supposed to be able to go wheels up out of Amarillo Airport and get out to Nevada, and so I think things are about to get back to normal. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. February live cattle futures down 85 cents at 115.30. April was down 165 at 124.15. Going out from there, live cattle on your back months were down just 2 cents to down $1.07. So you know, we had that late week charge there last week, and then we didn't have a board on Monday. Everybody was real anxious to get the board going again, and man, it's a downer. Of course, you know, the weather, normally the board loves the weather, but now we can't keep these packing plants open, so that's a big bearish tone. And then the sale barns aren't open, and we think we're getting feeder cattle backed up. We're really not yet, but if it went on very long, we could. Let's talk about feeder cattle futures. March feeder cattle down 235 at 138.42. April down $1.85 at 142.75. Going out from there, and they were down 85 to down $1.15. Your corn and beans both kind of settled, which is kind of curious because they weren't volatile. Corn is kind of settled right down around $5.50 a bushel. Beans has settled down around $13.84 a bushel. Your fat cattle trade still non-existent for the most part, so that's a good thing. Nobody's taking anything. Of course, your packers are saying that they don't need anything. They always need something, but they've had a lot of cattle committed, meaning that they've already got possession of a lot of cattle out there to fill their needs. And as light as the slaughter's been with all these blackouts and the cold weather delays, they're likely not to need too many cattle. But nobody's caving. They know that we've kind of got the drive, we got the leverage in our favor. Even if they don't have a big slaughter this week, they're likely to catch up and want to really crank it up next week. So just be a little patient here and wait for our turn. We did see one sale barn up in the northern plains that had a pretty good sale, and they did have a few at 114, which have been steady in the southern plains a little bit earlier in the week, but not much to speak of. But Stockman's Livestock, Yankton, South Dakota, they had an awful good fat cattle sale this week with prices ranging from 113 to 116.50. Few drug-free cattle up to 119. So you know, that kind of sounds like what we ought to be shooting for, guys. Whenever we start this direct trade. Box beef cutout values higher, so packers don't have anything to complain about there. Of course, the slaughter's been so light, you can imagine why it's higher. But wholesale beef prices sharply higher on Wednesday. Choice cuts Wednesday afternoon, 237.51 up 274. Selects 225.64 up 361. Your slaughter, oh man, is it light. Because just, you know, rolling blackouts, your plants can't run. Then there's also been some instances where you're having a hard time getting people in there to work because of the cold weather, bad roads, whatever. But 269,000 through Wednesday, that's 76,000 less than a week ago and 84,000 less than the same point a year ago. That is not good. What else do we want to talk about? How about Nevada livestock marketing? I told you guys I was heading out there. I've been helping them auctioneer at their monthly specials the last few months. They're working with DV Auction. They're bringing out my buddy Dusty Markham that I work with to take online bids out there because he's really good at it, and we've been getting a lot of online interest there. But Dan, are they getting the cattle in there? Jack Payne's got another huge special there in Fallon, Nevada. There's 2 sale barns in the whole state of Nevada. They're both in Fallon, and Nevada Livestock Marketing is right in downtown Fallon. And it's set up to maybe hold around 5,000 head. Well, they've set up portable pens in the parking lot to hold more cattle. So they've got overflow cattle there, expecting maybe 7,000. So it's going to be a big day. Nevada Livestock Marketing. View and bid that sale on dvauction.com. They don't start till noon Pacific, so you guys can get all your chores done and come back in where it's warm. Get on there and get on some of those hard high desert calves. I'll tell you what, if you don't like condition, man, they've got it, and they've got a lot of them light 4 and light 5 weight cattle there. And if you guys want to get in on some, you're having a hard time finding them, they've got loads of them. I dare say it, the cattle got condition and health and hardiness like Mexican cattle, except they've got quality and they got bone and they're solid colored. So if you guys are interested in something like that, tune in dvauction.com, Nevada Livestock Marketing on here on today on Thursday. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Real-time index on DV Auction late in the day on Wednesday, 139.75. That's up $1.52. Far outpacing your CME cash feeder cattle index. 135.71 was the latest available there, but a lot of the sales that they quote didn't have a sale, and a lot of the sales that we have in our RTI did have a sale. Some places like Kimball, South Dakota, and Faith, South Dakota, and places like that we get on our index that they don't have. You know, they didn't have an Oklahoma City or a Joplin, and they're just about out of luck. Let's talk about some of your big sales that happened on Wednesday. Bassett, Nebraska had a sale, 2,200 head there. Yeah, it was cold, but they're used to it, no big deal. The market reporter called it unevenly steady from 2 weeks ago. Couldn't argue with that. If you look at your biggest tested weights there, 267 head of 5-weight steers, average 557 at 176.80 on the average of all the 5-weight steers. Nearly 350 head of 6-weight steers, average 644, 157.42 on the weighted average price. 232 head of 7-weight steers, average 741 at 144.81. On the heifers, 441 head of 5-weight heifers, average 564, 154.82. 482 head 6-weight heifers, average 649 at 141.63. And then 291 head of 7-weight heifers, average 732, 134.29. Tell you what, all those are big time quotes. They could be individual quotes, and that's on all the cattle that were available there. So really good sale, Bassett, Nebraska. How about some individual quotes from all around the circuit? Sydney Livestock Market Center, talked to Tim Larson there to get straightened out on all the quotes there, but said they had off a good sale there. Been really cold up in that country, cattle coming in there with a lot of condition. But Sydney, Montana, 61 head, 707 pound steers, bring 149 a quarter. That's a big time quote way up there in Montana. How about Torrington Livestock Market, 53 head, 560 pound steer calves, 560 pounds, 180 bucks. That's getting something for a calf. It's not really all that big. How about a quote that I tell you I'm not really bragging about, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's a long ways from the feedlot areas, but they've got strings of cattle out in Virginia too, guys. And the quality, you'll never gripe about the quality of those Virginia cattle. Now, they're not known for their weighing condition or flesh condition, but I tell you what, for the guys up in the eastern corn belt and places that want some cattle that'll just keep going right on, and they want a string of them that's been together, you can get them at Tri-State Livestock Market, Abingdon, Virginia. They sold 62 head on Wednesday, 820 pound steers at 125. So, you know, get some of those, bring them out there. It might be easier than getting cattle west of you and taking them back. How about another quote on some big steers? Stockman's Livestock, Yankton, South Dakota. We talked about their fat cattle sale earlier, but on Wednesdays they sold feeders, 94 head, 973 pound steers bring $136. But the best quote that I saw anywhere, and your Zach Tran top quote for the day, come from Cody Fry and Kurt Sporleader at Creston, Iowa, Creston Livestock Market. D&J cattle brought in a string of blacks with a few smoky Charolais on them. 61 head of them weighed $829 at $140. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.